Joining us for the fall community engagement meeting of the Bladensburg Bus Garage reconstruction project. As you heard, this meeting is being recorded. Next slide. So in order for us to get through the information, we ask you to acknowledge some of our guiding principles for the meeting. We ask you at any time, feel free to type your questions in the chat. By typing your questions in the chat, it does not prevent you from being able to ask your question. It just allows us to know that there are questions. We've set aside time after each section for questions to be answered. And if we can get those in the chat, it allows us to, one, make sure we can prepare the person who needs to answer it, put you in the queue for making sure your question gets answered when it was asked. And also it allows us to record those questions so that if we have to follow up, we have it. So again, feel free if you want to speak during the Q&A portions to raise your hand using the raise hand feature. It's in the reaction section. And as always, feel free to type your questions in the chat. We ask you to please do not use any type of profane or offensive language, as that will cause you to be removed from the meeting. Next slide. So again, the raise hand feature is at the bottom bar. If you hit the reactions, you will see the raise hand feature is indicated in this slide. Next slide. So this evening, we are going to cover introductions, project overview, design updates, construction updates, site assessment, and art and transit, as well as talk about next steps for the remainder of the quarter. And with that, next slide. I will turn it over to the team for introductions.
Good evening. I'm Jamila Muhammad Ingram, and I'm here to introduce the team. So next slide, please. We have Diana Levy, the Director of Capital Delivery, Sean Pratt, the Project Manager, myself, Deputy Project Manager, Daniel Goucher, who is the Project Manager for Hensel Phelps, Laurent O, who is the Art and Transit Program Manager, and Jim Ash, the Environmental Coordinator. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'll start out with a project overview and updates. So at the last meeting, we provided an update on recent construction, design, and art and transit. We also answered questions from the community. You can visit the project website that you see on the screen for the recording of that meeting. Next slide, please. So here's a recap of the project. The site will include a new maintenance facility, parking for 300 buses, and a parking structure for 560 employees. The project is being constructed in 3 phases. We're currently in the first phase, shown in blue, which consists of the replacement of the maintenance facility. This takes place from July 2021 to August 2024. During the second phase that you see in green, we'll focus on building the employee parking garage from August 2024 to March 2026. And during the third phase that you see in orange, we'll complete the remaining bus parking on the site. So this will take place from March 2026 to December 2026. Next slide, please. So here's a reminder of the best practices we have for cleanliness and noise control. This includes the following. Work areas are cleaned daily. Waste receptacles and dumpsters are stationed throughout the site. Items are tied down to prevent flying debris during inclement weather. Also, DOEE approved water runoff controls have been installed. Regarding wheel washes for construction vehicles, we received a report that this has not happened as much as it needs to. So we spoke to the contractor to further reinforce our best practices to keep the street clean. There's also an on-site street sweeper posted near the gate and on standby for construction debris. We also perform weekly trash pickup on the project perimeter. And in regard to noise control, the typical weekday crew hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we limit hours of oversized load deliveries. Next slide, please. So in regard to contractor parking, to prevent parking congestion in the area, we now have 3 areas designated for contractor personal vehicle parking. This consists of where you see the letter A on the screen, 2122, 24th Place Northeast. And then where you see letter B, that's 2240, 25th Place Northeast. And also letter C, the properties on 28th Street Northeast. And in regard to the construction traffic flow, gate 1, it still serves as the primary construction entrance, which is located on 25th Place Northeast. Now, gate 2 is the secondary entrance, which is along Bladensburg Road Northeast. This is expected to be utilized more so in early 2023. Next slide, please. So in regards to agency collaboration and permitting status, you can see a list of the agencies and the status on the screen there. So regarding the Federal Transit Administration, we did have a categorical exclusion that was granted in summer 2020. For the District Department of Transportation, a Public Space Committee hearing was held on August 25th of this year, and approval was received. For the District of Columbia Historic Preservation Office, we have a programmatic agreement, and that's ongoing, an annual thing. The District of Columbia Department of Energy and Environment, we were cleared for demolition by DOEE in the fall of 2021, and there are ongoing environmental approvals with that agency. As far as the DC Water, PEPCO, and Washington Gas, coordination continues to take place. And the District Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs did provide building permit approval. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jamila. So at this time, we will, if there are any questions, again, feel free to type them in the chat or to use the raise hand function. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, and I'm not getting cued that there were any at this time. Okay, so there was a question, Jamila, is where are the building permits posted?
The building permit is currently only for phase 1. Where it's posted, I'll defer to Dan Goucher for that answer.
Yeah, thanks, Jamila. So currently we don't have the building permit. We have the building foundation permit. We have our fuel vault permit. We have our sheeting and shoring permit. We have our erosion sediment control permit. So we do not actually have the building permit. Again, we are in works with that. But we do have all the permits posted on site at our trailer.
Thank you for that response. Okay, so at this time, we will turn it over to Dan, since you're already here, to talk about the bus garage design.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Good evening, everybody. Next slide. So in the last couple meetings, we had really talked about design. We came to the conclusion of design. We did get issued for construction documents, and through that process, we did make a modification to the exterior. So I wanted to highlight that during this meeting. So we did, if everybody remembers, we used to have metal panel kind of on the administrative second floor of the bump out there. We have now switched to a terracotta. So this is a good bird's eye view again of the entire facility. You kind of see in the middle of the screen that little earth tone terracotta. So next slide. So this is just a close-up of what that kind of aerial view was showing. So you can see we do have a two-colored terracotta pattern instead of the metal panels. Next slide. So now I'll go into some construction updates. Next slide. Again, from last meeting, we talked a lot about the upcoming activities, and one of them was subgrade and grading the site. During that operation, we encountered some unforeseen conditions. We did find some legacy foundations underneath the existing building. So on the left-hand side, you can see kind of a couple photos of that. So we had to remove those. We also ran into some impacted soils that will be talked about later in this presentation. And you can see we had to do a number of geo borings to classify the site as far as what contaminants are there. And then the middle two pictures are, again, continuing to demo the legacy foundations, as well as those small, the bottom photo there in the middle, a bunch of, we call them micro piles. So they were small piles that stabilized the previous building. Then on the right-hand picture, you can see a lot of progress has been done. The foundations have been removed. Remediation has been completed, and we are really trying to rough grade and seal the building pad to help facilitate draining water. Next slide. We also talked about the fuel vault. So at this point, the fuel vault has been completed, minus the lid on it. So previously I had shown pictures of the fuel vault being excavated, shoring was going in. So now you can see the concrete placement. So the upper left is the placement of the bottom slab. Right underneath that on the left hand, we had several wall placements. You can see the first wall placement there in the bottom left. We also finished installing all the perimeter rebar. And then on the right-hand side, you can see kind of the formwork and how the formwork is installed to place the walls. Some stats on this, there was 71 tons of reinforcing steel installed. We had 529 cubic yards of concrete. And like I said, at this point, we actually finished that. Next slide. The other activity that we had talked about in previous meeting was the demolition of the existing sand filter. So kind of moving from left to right, you can see the progress of the demolition of this. At this point, this has been fully removed and backfilled and making way for our upcoming work, which leads me into my next slide. So for upcoming work here in September, I know we're at the end of September, but we will complete the fuel vault. We'll start the retaining wall, kind of highlighted there right at the corner of Bladensburg and 25th. You can see that kind of green outline. And then we also kind of in the beginning of October, we hope to get our building permit and as well as start our auger cast piles. So the auger cast piles are our deep foundations is what we call them. And they will start on the right-hand side of the picture and they will kind of work their way through the site. Moving to the left, there is roughly about 620 piles. So it'll take them about 6 to 8 weeks to complete. So that will kind of bring us all the way through December. They should be completed in December. And then foundation crews will follow behind them with pile caps on top of the clusters of piles and grade beam foundations. With that, I'll turn it over to Donzel to facilitate questions.
Thank you, Dan. So any questions regarding the building design or the phase 1 construction at this time? So checking the chat and not seeing any raised hands. We will move forward to the comprehensive site assessment. Thank you for going back. I always try to pause. I see Commissioner Montague, and I'll try to look for the body link. So looks like we are good to go. So I'm going to, at this time, turn over to Sean Pratt, who will talk about the comprehensive site assessment.
I'll cover this area for Sean Pratt
I
tonight.
apologize to be.
No
yes,
worries. So the comprehensive site assessment, next slide, please. The project team encountered soils impacted by contaminants. So a comprehensive site assessment work plan to collect soil samples and test the contaminants was completed and approved by DOEE. A report on the findings is in progress and it'll be provided to DOEE once it's finalized.
Any questions regarding the current conditions around the site assessment? I see you. I'm waiting for you to unmute.
One quick question on the this is Commissioner Montague, I'm sorry. This is only for phase 1, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So you're gonna have to repeat the same thing on phase 2, right?
Should we encounter some impacted soils, we would have to do the same thing.
Or how could you not well, I'm just suggesting that it will be necessary.
Okay,
Okay,
I hear you.
all right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Commissioner. All right, at this time, we will turn over to Laurent. So to talk about art in transit.
Right, good evening, everybody. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update of where we are. The first one is obviously the temporary art display at the fence, or the side fence, as some of you might have seen, either walking, driving, or taking the bus in the neighborhood. We've installed the banners in August. We will be or the Art in Transit project program will be working with the project team to monitor the condition of the banners and repair and replace as needed. Next slide. And then the next part of the planned projects for the site is the permanent artwork. We've discussed that in a few months ago, a few meetings ago. We are looking out to develop permanent artwork for the site. And this will be in conjunction with the beginning of phase 2 in 2024. As part of this process, we will reach out to the community and to make sure the community has a voice and is able to participate in the development of the permanent artwork. And Dr. I guess I'll go back to you if we have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent. Any questions regarding the artwork or thoughts and comments?
Me again. I was past the site last Sunday, and one of the panels towards 25th Street is kind of it's been unhinged on the left side bottom and folded up. So I don't know if the wind did it or if somebody wanting to see what was going on behind it did it. So you need to go out there and look at it, make sure somebody needs to go past that display every week to make sure that the panels are in place. We also mentioned in a small group that while I love the panels, and I think that the experience is better when you walk along the panels because it draws you and makes you really pay attention to them. But they are visually nice if you're traveling, by car. They, at least they make you look and say, oh, what's going on over there? The only thing, Laurent, that needs to be fixed is on the ones that have the locomotive on it, and it says B&O Railroad, it needs the date 1834 on it.
All right. So if I'll address all the points you just raised. Yes, we will make sure we'll address the panel that is seems to be a little, I don't know what happened to it. We'll make sure that it is secured and back in place as soon as possible. We just got informed today about the comment about the date for the locomotives. So well, I'll look at it and discuss it with the team, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts, or comments regarding art in transit, or actually any of the presentation at this time? Next slide. So at this time, we will turn it back over to Jamila to discuss, seeing no questions, a look ahead for what to expect in the coming quarter.
Thank you, Denzel. Next slide, please. So in October 2022, there will be a Board of Zoning Adjustment virtual public hearing for the project. It's scheduled for October 19th. A link to the public notice with specific instructions on how to attend are posted in the project update section of the Bladensburg project website. Also in October, we'll continue with building pad grading, stormwater and building foundation, auger cast pile related activities, the CNG yard layout, building permit coordination, also actually obtain the building permit. In November 2022, we'll continue that auger cast piling work for the new foundations. We'll continue with stormwater work and also concrete placement will begin for the stormwater basin. And in December 2022, the planned work is to continue on with some of the work from November, auger cast piles for new foundations, stormwater work, stormwater basin, concrete placement, and also we will begin bus lift pit activities. And next slide, please. So these are the ways that you can get in touch with us. And also it's a highlight of our next meeting, which will take place in winter 2022. In the meantime, you can visit the project website, email the project communications team, or sign up for project updates. And also as a reminder, the presentation that you see this evening will be posted on the website, and a Q&A document will be posted shortly after the meeting as well. Thanks. That's my last slide.
Thank you so much. Any questions regarding the remainder of 2022?
A couple of things. For this is Commissioner Montague again. For the just remember the virtual, you have to say who you are. I want for the record mention that Jim Ash is looking into that issue with the stormwater conduit under 26th Street. So we're trying to establish what the exact location of that is. And for the record, since there's a difference, we need to be exact from what was presented in the earlier maps versus what actually is. We need to really know what utilities are located where on that property. They should actually, when you get your construction drawings submitted to get your building permit, those things should be on there, but your team needs to check and make sure that that is on there. Because otherwise those building permits won't be, you won't get them. The bus lift pits, I know what they're for. So you're going to start working on that in December. I guess that's a good thing. The other thing was about the perimeter wall, which is at Bladensburg 25th place. That's where the CNG facility is going to be. Are those two connected or not connected? Is this retaining wall simply just to protect the property or to stop groundwater flow from leaving the property?
So let me make sure, so Commissioner, so two things. One, thank you for meeting with us and, talking about the conduit. And like you said, is looking into that. And hopefully you'll, continue to see us want to work to answer questions that, that are presented to us. And then the second part, and Dan, I know you're coming on. So the wall, I guess you can talk about Dan, the distance and the connection. You heard the question. Sounds like you're ready to go. So Dan, did you have a response to that?
Yeah, so on the retaining wall, that is the low point of the site right now. So as part of the redesign of the site, we are basically leveling the site a little bit more. So we needed that retaining wall to support the backfill to level the site. It is not the CNG happens to be in there, but there is not a connection between the two.
Okay, then you raise a very interesting point, because if you're leveling the site, is this retaining wall going to go above street level? And if so, to what extent?
I don't have the exact numbers. If you give me a second, I can look, but it is slightly above the street level, yes.
Okay, your opinion of slightly and mine may differ. We need to know, because then that becomes a visual intrusion in public space. And
So
so,
I apologize, finish, Commissioner.
no, you can see what my concern is, because right now the lot is flush with the elevation of the sidewalks and the street. But now we're introducing something to, and I'm not contesting, I'm simply saying we're going to make the lot level. We're going to introduce a retaining wall, and that becomes a design element because it's public facing. So just to say we're putting a retainer, now we have to, what is it going to look like to the public? You know, what is the intrusion? Because this is kind of like, maybe I've just missed it, but this is like the first time it piqued my interest.
So I see what you're saying, Commissioner. So what we can do is, one, and we're not being prepared for it tonight, and we can get you the specificity of the retaining wall height. But what I also think I hear you saying is, as we display the project site, it will be important that those renderings to represent what that retaining wall will look like in the completed project.
Right, because you don't want my fellow commissioners to come at you and say you misrepresented what this is going to look like when it's finished. The other, and this is my drop in the bomb on you. Now that we have a retaining wall, you know that terracotta finish that you had in the middle of the site on that second story? Maybe you consider dressing the retaining wall with that on the public facing side, to make it look more presentable. Please, nothing metal, nothing gray, nothing ugly.
So aesthetic consistency is what you're looking for.
Exactly. Now I have one more request, and I know that y'all say he's just asking, he's not paying for it, but yes, I am. The parts of both buildings, which are flat surfaces, which are public facing or facing Bladensburg Road, is it possible to change those exteriors to have that terracotta finish?
So I don't know if it's Dan, or because I know you were looking for information, and like I said, we'll get that information to you. So with regard to the Commissioner Ryan, just so you can make sure you heard, can you repeat what you had asked?
Yeah, I heard it. He wants to move the terracotta down the face of the building.
On the pieces that faced Bladensburg Road. So instead of having that white wall, we would have the more aesthetically pleasing terracotta finish. And then if you put it on the retaining wall, which is at 25th Place in Bladensburg, it's a more pleasant introduction to the facility that's behind, because at the moment, you all are still not embracing my brick perimeter fencing. So I'm going to try to get whatever I can to polish this baby up.
So Commissioner Montague, you're gonna be mad at me. I know you would, but I just have to take the hit. I think we know that is a material change that requires a conversation that I will make sure we note the request. I will make sure that we can continue the conversation, but I think it's reasonable to say that such a material change to the design is not going to, you're not going to get an answer tonight on.
Oh, no.
Is that reasonable?
I'm just putting it out there because
Fair enough.
We have more than enough time to hash it out and see and make it work.
Right. So, and that's what I hear. It's like you just want to make sure, put it on the record and begin the process of having the conversation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Noted. Then we'll get ugly a little as we get when the plans and stuff are drawn up.
There you go. I'm willing to take the hit, but I just wanted to put that out there. I didn't think you were expecting it, and I just wanted to make sure no one, got caught there. I just wanted to make sure everyone heard what you were saying was, hey, here's some things I would like for you all to consider.
Yeah, I didn't bring a howitzer tonight, so you're good.
I appreciate it. I genuinely appreciate it. All right, any other questions? I don't see any questions in the chat. Oh, here we are. I don't see any questions in the chat at this time. Next slide. So you all have heard our next meeting will be in the winter. I can say that, you know, as we move away from quarantine and COVID, we will look at attempting, you know, we are considering attempting a hybrid. I can't speak definitively, but we definitely will be having a meeting in the winter quarter. So thank you all. As always, the information has been placed in the chat where you can see the previous questions and response on the website, as well as the email to ask any questions that may happen beyond tonight's meeting. Thank you all for attending. Enjoy the rest of your approaching fall evening in DC. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.